What's up guys, and welcome back to the Build Studio. So my name is Chris, and today we are going to be unboxing and testing out this brand new AnkerMake M5C 3D printer. Now AnkerMake did send this all new supercharged 3D printer out to me, and it's apparently very fast. And at the same time, it's also a lot more affordable than a lot of the other printers that I've reviewed previously on this and my other channels. Now in addition to that, AnkerMake did bless me and send me a few additional rolls of their PLA Plus filament, as well as a 10-pack replacement nozzle kit for their 0.2 millimeter hot ends. So thank you AnkerMake for sending me these things to test out. I'm excited to both test out your PLA Plus filament as well as the printer itself. Now before we get into it, in today's video, we are going to test just how fast and accurate this new 3D printer actually is. We're going to unbox it, we're going to assemble it, and then we're going to try some test prints to see just how well it works and if I would recommend this to all of you. So stay tuned. So if you've been following me on this or any of my other channels, thank you by the way. You may have seen some of my previous unboxing and review videos for other leading 3D printers on the market. Now, most if not all of those 3D printers with similar speeds to this M5C are priced between $800 to a little over $1,000. Which means with this printer coming in only at $400, it makes it the most affordable printer on the market that can achieve those high speeds. Now this is great because that means the average speed of printers being able to print at 500 millimeters per second or more is becoming more standard and also a lot more affordable. Now this helps to move 3D printing technology forward and continues to force other companies to become more competitive when it comes to pricing, which then in turns also helps with mass adoption for consumers and even more growth and advancement in 3D technology as it becomes more mainstream. So I gotta say, thank you and hats off to AnkerMake for setting that standard. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get right into it and unbox and set this thing up. So first things first, this box is fairly heavy. I'd say it's probably lighter than the box that the X1 Carbon and the Bamboo Lab P1P, the P1S and the K1 Max came in. It's probably lighter than those, but then this is more of a desktop 3D printer, and those are just a lot more industrial, I'd say, and a lot larger. Okay, so like most 3D printers, they come packaged very well. Okay, so first things first, you'll get the assembly guide, which is this big giant poster. And at first glance, the installation does seem fairly simple. Most of the machine is already assembled, which is an advancement that I appreciate. I remember when I first got my Creality printer, my very first Creality printer, it took forever to put that thing together. So I'm glad that it's a lot simpler nowadays with the out-of-box experience, where assembly is not as complex. So there is also an app for the AnkerMake Slicer software. So that's definitely something you're going to want to download so that you can monitor and manage your 3D printer remotely. Okay, so that is the assembly instructions manual. Then you've got another poster that looks like it's just different languages for the safety instructions and just some of the other requirements for the printer itself. Okay, then you get this nice little toolkit, and it's I think this is a plastic case. Yeah, it's a plastic case, but inside of it you get your cutting tools, your Allen wrenches, your wrenches. There's a hot end in there, and just a bunch of different little tools that are going to be useful for putting this thing together and also troubleshooting and maintenance. So very nice little toolkit that's included with the printer itself. And these are becoming more common as well, so these are pretty nice. And I'm glad to see that they aren't skimping on it. You get your power cord as well, so this is just your standard power cord. Looks like a couple bolts, and I guess these are used for the assembly, and then a couple of screws as well, which I assume is also for assembly. This looks like it will be the filament holder, and it is. So this is an aluminum material, and then the holder itself is plastic. It's this thick, durable plastic. So it does feel very durable, so that's pretty good. I think everything else is underneath this first layer of styrofoam. Okay, so this looks like it is the vertical base with the two motors on the edge with the print head itself. So we'll just take this out. And it feels very durable, very heavy. It's made up of this steel and aluminum frame. The top part of here is plastic. Okay, so it looks like it's got a magnetic base, and then of course your textured magnetic print build plate, which, you know, I'm glad nowadays that these build plates do have these little markers here that allow you to make sure that the magnetic build plate goes on correctly and is positioned properly. Because back in the day you had to do it manually and kind of align it yourself, but now it's got these little guides so that the plates themselves are easy to align to the print bed itself. Okay, and then of course it's the base. So again, this is also very sturdy, very solid. It's a one whole piece. Top part is made up of another steel and aluminum material, so differently metal. And then the bottom is a plastic material. So also very sturdy and well built. Okay, so right off the bat you can see that the body and the base and the build of this AnkerMake M5C is a lot smaller than that of the Bamboo Lab 3D printers, as well as the Creality K1 Max printers, which makes this truly a desktop 3D printer. Now what's good about that is I think that they did mean to market this as a desktop printer rather than more of one of those larger printers for industrial or commercial or even professional purposes. So this one just allows you to, you know, print everyday items based on what you need and allows you to place it right on your desktop. So truly a desktop 3D printer, which as things get more mainstream makes sense, because just like printers in the old days, they were huge and chunky and you had to have special places to put them in order to use them. But then as technology grew and got more advanced, printers themselves, regular printers, not 3D printers, became more mainstream and became desktop printers, allowing you to place them on your desk to print everyday documents instead of needing special places and needing to walk over to the printers themselves in a central location. So hopefully that's where we're going to be headed with these 3D printers as well. Okay, so now that we've unboxed it, let's go ahead and assemble this thing. Okay, so first things first, unpackage it. 2 is to make sure you've got it set on the right voltage. So since I'm in the US, I want to make sure it's on 110 or 115 and not 240. So in order to do that, that is on the bottom here somewhere. Okay, so it's in this little crevice here. So in this little crevice right here. And by default, it looks like it's set to 115 volts, which is the correct setting for the US. And it says to also remove this bottom cage. Okay, so it does say to remove this cage, and I'm not sure why, but it looks like there is a disconnected wire. Okay, yeah, so you have to remove that so you can access these little green wires, which I assume you have to connect to the motors. All right, so I'm gonna have to offset this on the desk because I'm gonna need to get under there to connect the motors to this. Okay, so now that we've got that little bottom plate off, so we can access those little jumpers, we're gonna slide this in and place the motors between the 2 slots. And it just falls right in place. Okay, once those are in place, we need to screw those down with the included screws. So these M5 screws, and then connect the cable as well to the 2 motors on the bottom. So we're going to do that. Yeah, so we'll just set it this way, and that allows us to at least prop it up and screw everything in, as well as connect the 2 motors. Okay, so first things first, and I'm sure you can't see it on camera, but I'm going to connect the 2 motors by pushing these little jumpers into the motors themselves. Then once those are connected, we're going to take these M5 screws and we're going to screw in the vertical axis. And for that, we're going to use this tool kit and some of the tools inside. So we'll probably use the largest Allen wrench. And that just involves taking the Allen wrench and screwing in the 8 M5 screws into the base where each of the vertical axes are. Okay, so once that's done, all we gotta do is replace the bottom cover. Okay, so once that's assembled, all you gotta do is sit this thing back up and then start assembling the rest of it. So I gotta say that as 3D printing technology gets more advanced and as we move more towards the closed chassis look for 3D printers, there is something refreshing about these open frame systems that just looks nice. I mean, they're not enclosed, but there's just something about these that takes you back or is just really nostalgic about these open frame systems and setups. So I will say, initially, even before this is fully assembled, I do like the look of this 3D printer. And I've always appreciated at least the open frame look for the original 3D printers. There's just something nice about them. And then for this 3D printer alone, I just like the color, the design, and the engineering behind it. Okay, so moving forward, the next step according to the instructions is to plug in the ribbon cable for the vertical axis into the base itself. And then of course, to use the M4 screws here to install the filament holder or the filament bar onto the back of the base of this tower itself. Now it is supposed to face forward, so just need to line up the holes and screw it in. Alright, so first things first, we'll screw this first one in. We won't tighten them all the way. Okay, so we're just going to screw all 4 of these in first before we tighten them, just to make sure that the holes are lined up perfectly. And once they're lined up, we'll start tightening these bolts, or these M4 screws. Okay, and then last but not least, we take the feeder tube and we just stick it in just enough, and then place this little clamp back in to lock it in place. Okay, so overall setup took all of like 15 minutes to complete, and it probably could have been faster if I wasn't filming, which is awesome. It was super easy to put this printer together, so I gotta hand it to AnkerMake for making it so easy and beginner friendly. And also at the same time for putting together a really high quality 3D printer. The printer itself looks good, it feels good, and it's simple, which is something that I'm appreciative of. Okay, so now that the 3D printer itself is set up, let's go ahead and download the app from the App Store, as well as the AnkerMake Slicer software on my PC. Both pieces of software will allow us to edit and manage our 3D print files. Now while we're doing that, let's quickly talk about some of the specs for this M5C 3D printer. Again, the printer itself retails for around $400. It's got a print speed of 500 millimeters per second. In addition to that, it's also got 7x7 auto leveling capabilities, which I think should be a norm now in most 3D printers. It's also got an all-metal hot end, which is an improvement from the previous model, as well as a full aluminum alloy structure. The print bed on the printer measures 220 by 220 by 250 millimeters, which of course is slightly smaller than its predecessor, which I'm not sure why they made it smaller, but it also makes it a lot smaller than the print bed of the Bamboo Lab X1C. So although it's faster, you do lose from a print size capability. But then again, that could also be because this was meant to be a desktop 3D printer, which would then of course make sense for the smaller size. Now the print bed itself can reach a max temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, while the hot end can also reach a max of 300 degrees Celsius. When it comes to the speed of the print head itself, it's got a max speed of 5,000 millimeters per second and should be able to print a Benchy in about 17 minutes, which is something we'll test later in this video. Now when it comes to this AnkerMake M5C, it does not have all the bells and whistles that most of the more advanced modern 3D printers have, such as a camera, AI recognition, or even the capability to do time-lapse video. But then again, all most of us really care about at this lower price point is its ability to output quality prints at a much more reasonable speed. And then the best part of this 3D printer is that it does support pretty much every filament type there is available, which is great for a printer that comes in at just under $400. Okay, so once you've downloaded and installed the slicer software on your PC and also downloaded the app, all you need to do is create an account and log in. And once you log in, it should take you to the initial screen where you need to add a printer. So for that, all we're going to do is start by turning on the printer itself. And I gotta say, initially, the printer itself is pretty quiet, but we'll see if it maintains that low, quiet sound as we start to print things. That is quite a light and loud chime though, that's for sure. I do like that it's got AnkerMake's logo on the printer itself and it's all lit up, which is pretty cool. I like that it's sticking to the green and metallic blue aesthetic. Okay, so now that it's on, I assume that chime means it's ready. Let's go ahead and add the printer. So we have the option to add either AnkerMake M5 or the AnkerMake M5C. So we currently have the M5C, so we'll click on that and add that. So it'll want access to both Bluetooth and your camera, and it will start scanning for the printer itself. And I'm not sure if there's a barcode or anything on here that I need to scan. And scan the very small barcode on the back of the bar. It says it's an invalid barcode. I'm not sure why. Oh, there's two barcodes, so it's probably the larger one. Okay, and that beep I guess just means that it has found it. Okay, so please press the button once on the printer you want to connect to. So that is this little button at the front, and it's a programmable button. So right now it just has a play and pause symbol on it, but this button is programmable, so that's another nice feature for this printer itself. So you press it once and it automatically kicks off. And then of course we want to add it to one of our 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi networks. So we'll just connect it to my main Wi-Fi. Okay, and then the printer gets added to your account. Click next, and we'll just leave it the name of the printer by default, the AnkerMake M5C. Okay, so the operation button. So this is, I guess, where you get to program that button on the front of the printer. So single tap, double tap, and hold for 3 seconds. So right now single tap is print the latest file in USB, but you have a bunch of other options. I'll just leave it as it is. Double tap is reprint the last file, and again, you've got all those different options. Hold for 3 seconds is auto level by default. And then there is a homing option, but I think you just have 3 different functions. Okay, so that is when the printer is idle. So then there's also functions that you can program that button for when the printer is printing. So single tap is to pause and continue. Double tap, none by default, holding for 3 seconds is to stop printing. Okay, and once that's done, you're all done with the setup. So as you can see on the app itself, there is all this information that includes the printer status, whether it's idle or printing. It has the temperature of the nozzle and the heat bed. And currently they're at rest, so I don't expect them to be too hot. You can retract and extrude the filament that you have loaded. You can set the Z offset. You can move the print head itself. Okay, so before we do that, let's home it. Yeah, and we're gonna have to remove the styrofoam underneath the print bed. Okay, so we'll go ahead and remove the styrofoam, or it kind of kicked it out on its own. So we'll go ahead and let it do its calibration and alignment. And so far, the printer is very, very quiet. Okay, and of course it's gonna pop up to update the firmware of the 3D printer as well, which is expected for most new printers. So we'll just let it install the latest firmware on this 3D printer. Okay, so the firmware update installation did take a little bit of time. Okay, so let's go ahead and home this. And the movement is super smooth and quiet, which is impressive. Okay, that's Z-axis. Okay, let's also go ahead and home the X and Y axis. Let's home it back on the Z axis again. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the auto leveling. So it does say that leveling has 49 points and takes approximately 10 minutes to complete. So we'll go ahead and start that auto leveling. And I like that the logo does change color as well when it's working. So currently it is heating the nozzle. I do appreciate that it came with a double-sided PEI print plate. In addition to that, auto leveling is complete. It should be ready to print. Now I will say that the auto leveling did take a little bit of time, which I think it goes faster on the Bamboo Lab printers. But that's not to complain. I think it's super quiet. It's definitely a lot quieter than the Bamboo Lab, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and find something that we can print. So we can go to the app itself, and then we can go from the device section, go to explore, and we can look for things that we can print. So there's quite a lot of options initially on the Explorer tab itself, but I am trying to find the Benchy. This is the Benchy quick mode test. Now the good thing about this printer also is that it can support multicolor printing, and in order to do that, all you have to do is get and purchase AnkerMake's V6 color engine, which is this tower that can accommodate up to 6 different filament types, that allows this, or connects to this printer and allows you to print in multiple colors. So that's definitely something that I do want to check out. So AnkerMake, if you are watching this video, let me see if we can go ahead and test that thing out and review that on this channel as well. I'd appreciate if we could do that. I mean, it would well round out this whole experiment to see how good this printer is actually. Compared to, let's say, the Bamboo Labs and their AMS system. Because already 6 different colors beats the AMS's 4 colors, but I wonder how well it works. So AnkerMake, if you are watching this video, let's talk. I'm sure that my audience would love to see how that thing works. Okay, so now that we've got the Benchy, let's go ahead and click print, and we'll print it on the AnkerMake M5C. So it says it's got a print time of about 17 minutes. It's going to be at max speed. Oh, before we do that, of course, I think I have to load the filament. So let's go ahead and break out the filament that AnkerMake did send to me and see what we got. Okay, so this one is the PLA Plus matte. This looks like a blue color. That's pretty cool, I like that. And then we've also got a bigger box, and I assume there's 2 rolls of filament in this one. So we've got the PLA Plus white and another PLA Plus white. So 2 PLA Plus white rolls of filament and then 1 PLA blue, matte blue. And since we are going to put this thing through the test, let's go ahead and try the matte ones first, just because it's a different type of filament than we've used previously. So for this print, we are going to use the PLA Plus matte blue to test this printer out. Oh, it's got this nice texture to it. Okay, so we'll just cut this tip off at an angle. And that's another thing that I've gotten spoiled with on the AMS, is that it loads the filament for you, whereas if you don't have the AMS, you have to load it manually, which is always not the most fun task, but you know, not too complicated to do in most cases. So one thing you need to do when you're loading filament is you need to press and hold this extrusion clip while you're feeding, which should allow this to feed the filament into the print head itself until it can't go any further. And then you let go of it. And now let's see if we can extrude. Okay, the thing is moving, so it should be extruding some. Haven't seen anything yet, so let's do it again. Okay, there we go. So it's extruding filament now. So we know the filament is loaded. Okay, so now that we've got it all set up, let's go back to the Explorer, click on the Benchy, and print the Benchy. And select the AnkerMake M5C. So there is a filament type here, but it doesn't allow you to change it. And the reason why I'm looking so closely is because I get kind of nervous because there is a lot of buildup of filament on the print head itself or the hot end itself. And unlike the Bamboo Lab, which does have the little trigger to wipe off any kind of clumping filament, this one just only has the print bed itself to kind of just get rid of that as it's doing its print test. Okay, so we'll just let the 3D printer do its thing, and then we'll come back in about 16-17 minutes to see how well the Benchy turns out. Okay, so let's see how well the printer did and how well the print turned out. So just at a glance, ooh, it's really stuck onto that plate. Okay, so overall, I think the print job turned out pretty nicely. I'd say it's probably not the best I've seen, but at its current speed and without any calibration at all, I think this print turned out very nicely. So if I were to actually compare it to the Creality K1 Max and the Bamboo Labs printers, I'd say it's very, very close to the quality of all of those printers as well. It's very hard to notice the difference minus a few little imperfections, but then again, you know, with a little bit of calibration and adjustment, those little minor issues are going to be all worked out. But overall, using factory default settings, it turned out very nicely and it printed very fast. So definitely it did a good job. And I do also absolutely love the color of the filament that AnkerMake provided. This little bluish purple color, this matte color looks amazing. Okay, so overall, what do I think about this printer? I think it's amazing, especially coming in at a price point of a little under $400. Now, I know it's not fair to compare it to printers that cost upwards of $800 to $1,000, because not only do those have a lot more features, but it's expected at that price point that they should perform very well. Now, if I'm going to go ahead and compare this printer with other printers on the market around the same price point, this printer from AnkerMake blows those away. Simply because first, it's got the speed, nearly double or triple the speed of existing printers, maybe even more than that at the same price point. And it's also got the quality of the print itself using the factory settings. So not only a combination of the speed and the quality, but the price point itself, it automatically beats any other printer on the market at the same price point, both in speed, quality, and overall price. Now, in addition to that, I gotta say this is probably one of the more quiet 3D printers that I've used, and that is just very impressive on its own. And from an overall build quality perspective, this printer is super solid. I mean, it doesn't move, it doesn't shake, and overall very sturdy. And I also like the size because it does allow you to place it on your desktop. So unlike all these other printers that I've got around me that take up a lot of space, this one barely takes up any space on the desktop and will also fit perfectly on my desktop, which is why I think it's being marketed as a desktop printer. Okay, so in the end, would I recommend this printer to anyone? All I gotta say is if you're in the market for a printer that performs at the level of those $1,000 printers, but has a price point of those lower end printers, then I definitely recommend this because you get the best of both worlds. You get the performance, you get the quality, you get the speed, and you get the solid build quality of the printers itself. And then you've also got a printer that comes in at an entry-level price that makes it affordable for anyone who's new to 3D printing. And it's also very easy to use and set up. Now at the end of the day, because I am getting more into 3D printing and I'm also pretty much setting up a print farm, this actually becomes a more reasonable and more competitively priced printer solution for my print farm. So I'm probably going to end up ordering a lot more of these, especially because it does accommodate the print size that I'm looking for at the speed I'm looking for, but at a much more affordable price. Okay, so I'm going to play with this printer a little bit more, and hopefully AnkerMake is watching this video and gives me the opportunity to test out their V6 color engine so I can also share that with you. And if through further experimentation, if I do find out more features and capabilities of this 3D printer, I will do a follow-up video to share with you my findings. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you want one of these, please use my link in the description section below to pick one of these up for yourself. I highly recommend it just because it is an affordable printer, it does an excellent job, it's got high print quality, and it's super fast. And then overall, it's got a solid build form for the printer itself. Anyways, thank you for checking out this video, and as usual, thank you for your support. Please make sure you smash that like button and subscribe, and also ring that bell icon to get notified when I post new content. Until next time, see ya.